Hello. So, um, tried this several times in my life, and I don't know if people get this, as in everyone. Um, Something that not only has bothered me, but because I can see the miscommunication that happens, and that leads to other things like as far as something like war, and we take communication for granted because we think we're just using words. It's not just words. It is emotion, it is intention, all that stuff. And so, as a language teacher myself, I don't see myself even as a language teacher per se. I don't want to teach it. I want to guide people to better communication so that it comes from, leads to people really communicating and understanding there's a reason there's culture because of the way we say things. For example, like I see this all the time when I communicate with people who are not raised in Canada, for example, who are not born here, and all of a sudden you see them going reacting to something that you say, and it's just like, no, that's not what I meant to say. It's not an offense, just the way it is. So what's happening is they're misreading the body language, or rather the words that you've said, or the sentences you've said, or everything that you've said, or many of the things you've said, or some of the things you've said, doesn't matter, through the body language that they perceive in the way they're used to things. So there's the collective stuff, and then there's the individual stuff as well. So it's both the person and also the collective. It is an ego thing, but it's an unhealthy ego when it becomes reactive. Um, because there's two sides to this. One is we have to learn to be more empathetic towards each other, connect more with each other, share the differences. But at the same time, we have to also figure out and kind of go back to the original stuff, which is really acquiring languages, not in a way that people have said it to me today. Like, you see on YouTube, there's so many people going comprehensible input, but they're not, what they're not getting is that it's not about the technique, it's not about the methodology or the methods or the ways or anything like that at all. It's about trusting your intuition, your instinct, and going with what feels genuine. You know, I did a degree in education, and even in those times when I was doing education in languages, even before that, I was doing it like the traditional way, and I was just like, people thought, even today, people think, oh, I can speak Italian, oh, he can speak this. And I'm like, no, that's not what it really is. I don't speak languages per se. I don't have fluency, let's say, in German, for example. I do, but some, but it's not there, you know what I mean? Like it's, so there's a lot of things that we try to ignore that kind of what, if native speakers misunderstand me, not it's not so much because of what I say, because of how I use the words, and more like it's not any of that little things anymore. It's more about the whole thing. It's like, how am I really communicating? Am I communicating to what they're used to? We have to address that because it's like we have to understand that it's like there's a culture is basically a calcification. Let's call it that. It's a buildup of individual to the collective way of speaking. And so when a person misunderstands you, for example, what happens, especially if they're not a native speaker, or they haven't really acquired much of what the culture does, what happens is this assumption being made by so-called non-native speakers that what you mean is what they feel is you said based on what they know, when in fact it's like, no, it's not that. So I find that it's kind of like it's very um I don't know what it is. It makes for very unnecessary miscommunication. It's like, I mean, it happens even within like countries like, Canadians and Americans, and English is the first language between the British people and the Americans. There's a miscommunication because of the way there's it's a mixture of many things. It's collective, individual upbringings, households, cultural stuff, mixture of other cultural stuff. And also like intonation is part of that. So we're used to that. So that's one side of it where it's just like we have to be open to it because it's like, well, we're bound to come across a new dialect. But at the same time, we cannot forget that we cannot be like, let's just scratch and discard cultural norms and cultural tendencies and cultural things that have been around for hundreds of years or thousands of years. We can't do that. Just like we can't ignore a person in what they need. Their basic needs comes from a basic foundational need to feel safe and secure in the environment. You can't just tell a child or tell an adult, "Oh, get over it." It doesn't work. We have to address both sides where we have to heal the past and then build a better future for that. I'm talking just specifically like in this area of languages because we think languages is like, oh yeah, we could just get a dictionary and translate and just do whatever you want. It doesn't work that way. And we keep repeating the same thing again and again and again and again. And so there's like a friend of mine just like told me it's like the tech text me, it's like I don't understand your humor. I didn't say anything, but I was like thinking like I don't understand him. So what they were doing is they were transferring their humor into English, which doesn't translate. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can do that. You can sort of introduce that. That's fine. But at least what happened there was that that's fine. I just didn't get it. That's totally fine. But you know what I mean? So that's one side of it, which is like we're healing each other. So we're kind of growing, we become more aware. So we're not reactive because, oh, I didn't understand what you meant. What did you mean by that? Right? So there's that. There's more, because you could say the spiritual side of it, but there's also the more earthly side to it, which is still spiritual, which is acknowledging and really, you can say, I guess you can say venerating. That's the right word for that. You know, and there's so much other things too. Like for me, sometimes I question my English because it's like, you know, I mean, not only do I have pure white, but and it leads to all these things. It's like, oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so there's two sides to that where it's like, is there a misunderstanding? Is there miscommunication because of personal bias, or is there a misunderstanding because of a collective, uh, unacquired concepts or unacquired behavior of the language? You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. So I hope that makes sense. So that's my thing. It sounds like a ranting video, but that's what it is. And it's yeah. I don't know. I see things and there's just like, well, why are they reacting this way? It's like that's not what I meant to say. It's like this, you know what I'm saying? So there's things to be so-called done, not because it's a problem, but it's like we that's part of the growth process. We learn from that. 'Cause otherwise, it just might as well blow each other up, right? Not to be negative, but you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, come on, you know, it's it's quite simple. Life should be quite simple. Even if there was miscommunication, even if there was this whole thing about um, all that stuff, like non, where language is just taught and that stuff, then that's fine. But we cannot ignore that cultures have been around, certain cultures have been around, and you kind of just have to speak that way. If you try to go to, like I said, an Arab-speaking nation or somewhere in Africa or somewhere in East Asia, and you try to incorporate those little nuances that are, let's say, Canadian or American or British or Australian, whatever, into Japanese culture, they'll be like, what? So that's why there's separation, there's segregation, not as an actual major factor, but that's part of it because they don't get you, right? My parents do this all the time. They don't hang around with Canadians, so to speak, or I mean, they might hang around with whitewashed Filipinos, all that stuff, but then they don't really hang around with other people because they feel like it's like they say, oh, they don't understand our culture. And it's like, well, first of all, let's make it this way. Officially, I mean, I say officially, I mean not permanently. Government wise, standard things wise, doc, whatever it is, English and French are the norm here. So if they're not getting you, more like you should question, my parents should ask, are we not getting them? And at the same time, even if they don't get you, these so-called whitewashed people, or white Canadians, as they might call it, Canadians, that they like to put as it's an old type of mentality. It's an old, outdated sort of mentality. Then you should question. Then they should also be like, do they not understand Canadian Filipinos or Filipinos per se, or those who have partly acquired the cultural nuances, the subtleties of things in the culture here that are represented through the language itself or languages. Right? So we don't stop and pause and be in the present moment and understand and it's a work in progress. We take these things for granted. We take communication for granted. We take empathy for granted. We take not all of us, but more and more people are. I'm just saying there's still some of us that are doing that. So, but that's not for me to solve. I'm just saying I'm expressing this because I feel this is important, particularly when it comes to communication. Not so much about language anymore, it's about communication, right? I've had students also who are like Korean students who sometimes like they have this reaction as if it's like you're saying this and like, no, that's not what it is, you know? So you see what I mean? So it's just like, and so sometimes, it's easy to be the reaction to the reaction, but of course that doesn't lead to anything else. That leads to more conflict. So, anyways, I just thought I'd post this because I think it's important. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I will see you later. Hope that gives you some food for thought, or at least where things I feel should be headed. But I don't know.